Andrew, on today's edition of the Thrive Time Show, we are interviewing our friend who is the newly pardoned Roger Stone.
The Roger Stone, that's him.
He's been pardoned directly from President Donald J. Trump, and he joins us here to talk about stopping the steal of the 2020 election and the importance of joining the President Donald J. Trump in Washington, D.C. on January 6th, 2020. If you love our president and you love these United States, try to find a way to make your way to Washington, D.C. on January 6th, where you can join Roger Stone, myself, Charlene Bollinger, and other freedom-loving Americans. All this and more on today's edition of the Thrive Time Show on your radio and podcast download.
Some shows don't need a celebrity narrator to introduce the show, but this show does. 2 men, 8 kids, co-created by 2 different women, 13 multi-million-dollar businesses. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Thrive Time Show.
Now, 3, 2, 1, here we go!
Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to get here. Started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom, now we'll show you how to get here.
Yes, 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 and yes. Thrive Nation 2020 has been quite a year for so many people. A year of adversity, a year of tenacity, a year of pushing through trials and tribulation. And on today's show, we all have a reason to celebrate because our good friend, America's good friend, a friend of America, Roger Stone, has been pardoned by President Donald J. Trump. And with that being said, Roger Stone, welcome on to the Thrive Time Show. How are you, sir?
Clay, I'm delighted to be with you. Of course, I'm delighted to be anywhere that isn't a dank Georgia federal correctional facility, which is where the deep state and the Mueller witch hunters wanted to send me. No, I'm very thankful to God and specifically for giving our president, Donald Trump, the courage and the wisdom and the strength to grant me a full pardon, despite what he knew would be the public uproar because of the false narrative created by the jackals in the media. Any objective person who will look at the ordeal that my wife and my family and I have been through over the last 2 years will recognize that I've committed no crime, that I dealt with a corrupted investigation with a political motive, that I had an epically biased and hateful judge who had no problems about declaring her hatred for the president from the bench. I had a corrupted jury forewoman who called herself a member of the resistance, who attacked me and the president on social media platforms like Twitter and Facebook in 2019, had those postings hidden on a private setting during jury selection and my trial, and then deleted them after the trial. Of course, the judge says that wasn't evidence of bias. I had an extraordinary level of prosecutorial misconduct, very much like what you saw in the Flynn case, right, where they withheld exculpatory evidence from us. They surveilled my communications with one of my lawyers without a warrant, of course. They destroyed evidence of their own criminal conduct in my investigation. No, it's exactly what you would expect from the swamp. So thank you, and God bless you, President Trump. I'm delighted to be here with you because, Clay, what this means is I can return to the ramparts. I want to get back in the fight to make America great again and to beat the atheistic, godless globalists who are trying to heist the 2020 election and are this close to doing so.
Roger, what I want to do is I'm going to call this kind of a virtual town hall. I have some people here with me. I have my wife, Vanessa, with me of almost 20 years. I have Aaron Antis. He runs Oklahoma's largest home building company. I have Jordan Roberts here. He runs a machine shop. And I would just say we represent the average Americans that get out there and vote. We're conservatives. We love our country. We love our president. And I'll go first. I just want to ask, what is it that you feel like, that you believe that every single listener to our program needs to know between now and January 6th? January 6th is the date where the president has asked the Patriots to come join him in Washington, D.C. What do we all need to know between now and January 6th?
The importance of showing up in Washington, and if you can't make it to Washington, to the state capitol in your home state, where many states are having mirrored Stop the Steal protests on the 6th, is because the mainstream media continues to push a narrative that the president's support is dwindling. He didn't have much support to begin with because he was going to lose to Joe Biden by a crushing margin, which of course did not happen. And when the president turned out massive numbers at these rallies, it kind of disturbed their narrative. No one will believe you're going to lose Wisconsin by 17 points, as the ABC poll showed, if 45,000 people show up to see you when you visit Milwaukee. So in numbers, there is strength. It's vitally important to turn out as many fine, peaceful, patriotic Americans as possible for the January 6th events. The other thing I would say to you is that this is the last best hope for the United States of America, and indeed for Western civilization. Because if we are now in a system in which one cannot make fundamental changes to the system through the courts, because the courts are corrupted, and one cannot make fundamental changes in an election because the election is manipulated, it's not honest or fair or transparent, and our legislators at both the federal and state level are completely constipated and can't bring real reform, either because of the special interest influence on elected officials or because they don't share our vision of America. A lot of them are Republicans, by the way, country club Republicans who believe in lining their pockets. Well, then this is going to put enormous pressure on America. I'm not an advocate for violence. I'm an advocate for settling things peacefully. But if they cut off every peaceful method of reform, what was it Malcolm X said? The ballot or the bullet? We're going to have violence in America because peace-loving Americans who love the Constitution and love freedom are not going to be ordered to wear a mask for the next 10 years. They're just not. I fear for my country because they are cutting off all peaceful civil avenues of reform, and that is going to frustrate the patriot movement.
Vanessa, you are a mom of 5 kids, my incredible wife. What question would you have for Roger Stone about what's going on in America right now? Oh, I have you muted. I'm a passive-aggressive Roger. Sorry, passive-aggressive Roger. Sorry.
No, my thoughts come back to this very recent attack, or well, you want to say, I know they said was a bombing of an RV. It looked more like a missile strike to me. I'm not sure what happened in Tennessee. We're still looking for all the facts. I feel like people whose eyes are open, who are awake to what's going on, along with the deep state, kind of know there is a war for America behind the scenes. I feel like the majority of America has not woken up to that, but I feel like that was maybe some of what's happening behind the scenes playing out for the first little bit in front of us. Do you think we're going to see more events like that just happened in Tennessee?
I think it is highly likely. I mean, look, we're at a point here where this is no longer about politics. This isn't about Republicans versus Democrats or even liberals versus conservatives. This is an epic struggle between dark and light, between good and evil, between the godly and the godless. And if we fail in this fight, we will step into 1,000 years of darkness. I really believe it is that cataclysmic, that it is that apocalyptic. There's no question that God has smiled on this nation because the country is founded on godly principles. It is founded on Christian principles. What does it says on our money? What does it say? In God we trust. I'm sure the globalists are trying to get that removed, but it is the fundamental tenet on which this country was built. And those who seek to move us to one world government, those who seek to control our private lives and to erase our freedoms, well, they were threatened by Donald Trump. You see, Donald Trump was not a man who could be controlled. He can't be bullied. He can't be bought because he's a billionaire. And he didn't run for office because he needed the ego gratification. He ran for office because he loves his country and he didn't like seeing what was happening to it. And he gave up a lot to run for president. He gave up an opulent and easy lifestyle, the most beautiful home in all of Florida, the most beautiful apartment in Manhattan with breathtaking views. He could spend time with his grandchildren. He could play golf whenever he wanted to. He was set, and he gave that all up for us, not for him, for us, for the American people. And because he's a reformer, because he cannot be co-opted, the Republicans and the Democrats in Washington set out to destroy him. First through the phony Russian collusion hoax, in which I, of course, got jammed up because I was charged with a bunch of fabricated crimes for the purpose of putting pressure on me to bear false witness against the president, to lie about some 29 phone calls we had between us in 2016 when he was a candidate. I refused to do that, as you know. This has been nothing but a psyop from the beginning. First, they told us Trump couldn't possibly win. His mishandling of COVID-19 has caused an exodus of suburban women. He's going to lose all of these swing states by double-digit margins. And ignore the fact that Joe Biden can't even get 200 people to a rally. Ignore the fact that record numbers of people are coming out to see the president. Don't look behind that curtain. That doesn't matter. The whole thing was a psychological preparation that was then reinforced by the mass censorship, the censorship of all mass communications. I've been in American politics for 40 years. I've never seen this before. We now have censorship on network television, on cable television, and complete censorship on the internet, not to mention the corporately owned fake news media. They're in on it as well. The only area where we don't have censorship is, of course, radio. That's the last place where there are some people who know what they're talking about and who are not censored. But they use this censorship to reinforce this entire fake narrative. Now move it forward. We have the election. Donald Trump clearly wins a majority of the legal votes cast, but the Democrats have done the devil's work. They've gone into these states early. They have loosened the rules and the laws regarding voting in order to lay the groundwork for massive fraud. That's what we're dealing with. So, yes, I think there's going to be more efforts by the deep state to use whatever techniques they need to hide what has actually happened in this election.
If you're listening right now and you want to see the truth about the censorship that was just referenced by Roger Stone, go to Time to Free America and click on the button that says the truth about the censorship. Think about this. You can't go on mainstream media and share the truth.
Nope.
If you post on social media, they delete your posts. You're not supposed to leave your home in certain states. And when you do leave home, you're supposed to leave a mask, you're supposed to wear a mask, which isn't conducive to having a conversation. I mean, it's censorship at the next level, and this is all cited for you. If you go to timetofreeamerica.com and you click on the button, the truth about the internet censorship, the truth about censorship button, you can see that. Now we're going to open it up for kind of a fast kind of a town hall format here. So my wife has one more question for you, Roger Stone, and then we're going to open it up for everybody else to ask you some questions. Yeah.
I just would like to know your personal opinion about what that act or event was about in Tennessee.
Do you want to comment on that?
Do you want to? Yeah, you don't want to? No.
I've got to be honest with you. I don't have enough information to comment.
Okay.
I've read about it fleetingly. I've gotten some emails on it. I haven't had a chance to study all of it in toto.
Yeah.
So I don't want to get out there and comment. This has been, as you might imagine, an extraordinarily busy period for me. I may have told you, Clay, that at 6:30 on the day the president issued his pardon, I glanced at my phone and I had 6 unanswered text messages. By 7:30, I had 596 unanswered text messages from friends or other acquaintances wishing me well and thanking God for this result. And I'm slowly working my way through them because everybody deserves a response. So it has been somewhat overwhelming. I also had to get out in the press because when something like this happens, the fake news media and the jackals that work there immediately try to rewrite history. The president's pardon of Stone is outrageous. He was convicted by a jury of his peers. Well, first of all, 12 drooling left-wing Trump-hating Democrats in the District of Columbia are not my peers. Let's be clear about that. And there was misconduct by the judge, the prosecutors, and the jurors in my case. But the media doesn't want to talk about any of that. They didn't talk about it during my trial or after my trial, and they certainly don't want to talk about it now. They continue to push a false narrative. Roger Stone maintained his silence in return for clemency, maintained his silence about misconduct by the president. False. Total nonsense. Now Roger Stone can be dragged back before the grand jury, the epically corrupt Mueller witch hunt thug Andrew Weissman says. And he'll have a choice between pleading. He can't plead the fifth. He's got to tell the truth. Well, I don't think that's going to happen. There's no probable cause. But if I get to the grand jury, you know what? I'll tell the truth. And the truth is, you got nothing on the president and nothing on Roger Stone.
Now, quick.
It's a fake narrative, Andrew. You just keep spitting it out.
Now, quick, I want to make sure the listeners know this. If you want to see video footage so you can draw your own conclusions of the Nashville explosion my wife's referencing, I'll put a link to it on today's show notes so listeners can watch the footage, which is publicly available, and draw their own conclusion. We're going to bring in some other folks to ask some town hall questions for you. And as we do that...
Wait a minute. Clay, before we do that, I have a question for your wife.
Yeah, she has. Roger has a question for you. Here we go.
I'm
Ready?
here.
This is a simple one. Clay Clark, briefs or boxers?
Boxers for sure. I mean, you saw those big old pants he's wearing, right?
Yeah. See, I knew you were a prep type. I knew it. All right, let's move on.
All right. Now, this is the thing. I mean, some of our listeners don't know some of the names. So just briefly, when you said Mueller and you said Weissman, I know who these people are because I've researched this, but I want to make sure all of our listeners, many of our listeners are business owners who just love freedom. Who is Mueller? Who is Weissman? Who is Durham? Who are these people? Sure. Just kind of give us, because some people have never heard these, or they hear just the last name, but they don't know how they fit into this puzzle.
Robert Mueller was a former FBI director, and
I'm calling you right now too. I'm trying to overwhelm you with the data.
He was appointed by Rod Rosenstein to investigate allegations of Russian collusion between the Trump campaign and the Trump campaign and the Russian state. And he spent $30 million. He had unlimited power. He could look into anything he wanted to. He wasn't limited to that specific topic. And essentially, this was a politically motivated witch hunt. We now know definitively that the documents on which this investigation were based, the so-called Steele dossier, was fabricated by folks out in the Hillary Clinton orbit, and then sold to the FBI, although they knew it was fraudulent as well. And that was used as the legal basis to open this investigation. Robert Mueller is an epically corrupt individual. I'll be writing a book on him because you need to understand at every turn in American history, this guy shows up as the fixer for the deep state. Whether it is the anthrax matter or 9/11, he's always Mr. Cover-Up. He's got an illustrious background of deception, and he's carried out. He's the guy who carried the uranium samples over to the Russians to examine before they closed the deal to acquire essentially control of all American enriched uranium. He did that for Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton. So folks need to know who this guy is, and they can't wait for my book. So I urge you to do a little research online. Epically criminal. Andrew Weissman was his deputy. Since it was clear from his testimony before the Congress that Mueller, in fact, the poor guy has Alzheimer's, he wasn't in control of anything. He didn't even seem to be familiar with his own report when they read sections of it back to him. Andrew Weissman is the corrupt individual who, interestingly enough, destroyed the memory of his government-issued cell phone. In other words, destroying evidence of his own criminal conduct, but would throw me in jail if I had done that. Unfortunately for him, I destroyed nothing, and any claim to the contrary is false.
Clay Stairs, you are a former school teacher turned business consultant.
Yes, sir.
My understanding, the rumor is that you actually love freedom and are not a big fan of communism.
Yes, sir.
Last time I checked, you did not renew your membership to Antifa of the Month Club.
I did not.
Okay, you're not a member of Antifa, Roger. We just want to make sure you know this isn't. A lot of times you get on these big shows, Roger, and you have these non-questions where somebody who hates you asks you a question that's not a question. This is not going to be one of those questions. So Clay Stairs, what questions did you have for Roger Stone?
I've got a question. Again, Roger, thank you so much for being on the show today. It's an honor to talk with you. And a quick question I have is I've been hearing Trump saying that over the next several days he's going to be releasing information, releasing documents, and so on. Do you have any idea of what this release is? And where we should anticipate seeing these?
We need the release.
Where's the release? I tell you,
Release.
I'm in the process of needing a release. If you can help me with this, Roger. And I'm wondering too, is part of this releasing these documents and everything? Are we getting ready to find out that there are some people in Gitmo that we didn't know about?
Well, from your mouth to God's ears, I'm skeptical. But here's the most predictable thing about Donald Trump. He's completely unpredictable. This guy understands the media cycle, and he understands the drama of Washington. And he does have vast resources at his disposal. And he knows the truth about this election, as anyone who will look at it objectively does. So I would not rule anything out. Donald Trump is a fighter. He's a brawler. He loves the country. He knows what's happened here. He knows this election is a fraud. And I would not count him out, never count Donald Trump out. One of his greatest assets throughout his entire business and political career is the fact that his competitors have always underestimated him.
Yeah.
And he has always exceeded what they expected from him. And he's a winner. Trump's name has never been associated with failure. That includes his efforts to lead this country. It's amazing to me that he doesn't get the credit he deserves for revitalizing our economy, producing the most robust economy in our history, record job growth, record wage growth, the lowest levels of unemployment among African Americans, Hispanic Americans, Asian Americans, and women. He rebuilt our military strength. He renegotiated these big one-size-fits-all international trade deals to start bringing job growth back to the United States. He appointed several outstanding conservative Supreme Court justices when it comes to issues like life, keeping his pledge to do so. No, this is a truly great president, the greatest president, in my opinion, since Abraham Lincoln.
Wow.
But the liberals who double as historians will never give him credit for the extraordinary success of his presidency, which is equally, or I should say, which is even more astounding, given the deep-seated opposition of the leaders of both major parties in Washington.
Now, Aaron Antis, you've met Aaron. Aaron Antis has met you, Roger. Roger, you met Aaron.
Yeah.
Aaron is a man who runs Oklahoma's largest home building company with his brother Joe Antis. Aaron Antis is our favorite Antis. We barely even respect Joe Antis. No, I'm just kidding. We love the Antis family. They do run Oklahoma's largest home building company. Aaron, what question do you have for Roger Stone?
Roger, great to hear about your pardon. I was so excited.
I actually cried. I'm not kidding. I cried.
It was awesome.
I didn't pull my hammy. It wasn't like a weep. It was more of like a man tear.
Yeah.
Like the Marlboro man crying. Roger, I'm serious. I was so fired up for you, man.
Yeah.
We're all excited for you. Back to you, Aaron.
Yeah, one of my favorite moments when we were with you, Clay and I were with you in Nashville a couple weeks back with Ty and Charlene Bollinger. I remember when Clay and Vanessa were praying for you when we were in the restaurant, and I took a picture of them because I thought, what a special moment getting to pray with you guys about that. I'm so thankful that the Lord spared your life. You didn't end up in a COVID prison. I'm so thankful that the president pardoned you from this sentence, and it's just a special time to see that happen. What I'm most thankful for is back in 1988 when you first began trying to convince Trump to run for office and repeatedly have done that over the years. So my question is, I know going forward from here that Trump is, hopefully going to have the next 4 years.
Don't say hopefully.
I believe he is.
Yeah. Sick freak.
No, he is going to have the next 4
definitely
years. Yes. But what's going to happen is at the end of this 4 years, I believe the Lord has his hand over this nation. And I'm wondering, since you were able to have some influence getting Trump to run, I don't know who's going to be next. I kind of have an inkling that I feel like General Flynn. Clay and I both feel like it's going to be General Flynn. But on a side note, do you happen to be friends with maybe Chuck Norris? Because I'm thinking maybe we could bring Chuck in. I don't know. What do you think is going to happen down the road after Trump's next 4 years? And would it be Chuck Norris? Do you have any input?
Or General Flynn.
Yeah, or General Flynn.
Chuck Norris, there's a novel idea. It'd be a great vice presidential candidate. Flynn Norris. I kind of like that.
Yeah, maybe that's the team right there.
No, actually, let's look at this from an analytical point of view. I believe that the Trump movement is much bigger than Donald Trump himself. I believe that the America First movement is now dominant within the Republican Party.
Yes.
And even if the president does not serve 4 more years, it will continue to be dominant.
Yeah.
Anybody who thinks this party is going to go back to being the party of the country club elites has another thing coming.
Amen.
We are now the party of life. We are now the party of working class Americans. We are the party of tax reduction. We are the party of economic growth.
Yes.
We are the job party. And that's not going to change. So what we need as supporters of the president, or I should say supporters of that reform wing of the party, is a candidate who can galvanize all of the Trump supporters in one camp.
Yeah.
As long as we do that, as long as we do not fractionalize and factionalize to a bunch of lesser candidates, then I think there is no way that the party establishment can take the Republican Party back.
Yeah.
If we fail to do that, it's not inconceivable that the party could return to its wayward direction. But they have the same issue. There'll be a number of neocons running. They'll all claim to be Trump Republicans, of course, but they won't be. General Flynn is an interesting idea because we became good friends, having the shared experience of the Mueller investigators trying to destroy us. The same tactics, the withholding of exculpatory evidence and the lies and the threats and the financial pressure to destroy you so that you'll plead to something you didn't do.
Yeah.
He is a great man. He's a man of enormous integrity. He's a man of great knowledge about the existential threat to this country from our terrorist enemies abroad.
Right.
I think he could be drafted to run for president. I don't think he hankers for power. I don't think he's a politico in any way, but he loves his country. And I think he could be persuaded that it is his duty to run, just as Dwight Eisenhower was in 1952.
Yeah.
But right now, our focus is on the next 4 years, not
Sure.
4 years after that. Because if we do not win this fight,
Right.
it's conceivable that America will never have a fair, honest, transparent election again.
True.
So what difference would it make who we nominate or how good a campaign we run if the results are rigged from the beginning?
And
We have to fix this. There's no question about it.
And if that happens, we definitely need Chuck Norris. So I just want to put that as a side note.
Well,
there.
because
So-
somebody might need to be kicked around at the end, so it'd be good to have Chuck Norris. But
Now, Roger,
it's an interesting idea. You know, he would not be the first person who went from show business to politics.
Oh, yes, like
Well,
Reagan.
Now, Roger, we have a listener here named Daniel in the booth here in the studio, as we have 3 more people that like to ask you some questions here. Daniel is in the hair business, and I won't mention the name of his brand, so I don't want to get him in trouble, but he's in the hair business, and I believe these mandates and lockdowns and shutdowns have, Daniel, cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars?
Absolutely.
And it appears as though the president is one of the only leaders saying we need to open up. We got to open up. The cure, the lockdowns can't be worse than the actual virus. Daniel, what question would you have for Roger Stone?
Roger, I'm so glad you got pardoned. Thanks for doing everything you do for the country. Thanks for picking Trump to be president and talking him into running. I can't believe the amount of change that's happened in this country in the last 4 years. It's phenomenal to see going forward. So what I want to ask is, do you think this happens before January 20th? In my experience, every time I've like, for example, the Mueller report, you got so excited because it was finally coming out, but it came out with a big old dud. It gave the people that wanted to convict the president what they felt like they got, and the people that wanted to see him let go, and they got what they wanted. And so I've got this big buildup for January 6th, but then I read that it's January 18th is actually the day that actually has to be made by the vice president. Does it happen before the 20th?
That remains to be seen. First of all, I think there's a problem in that most Americans don't understand this process and the many steps along the way. the events of January 6th take place when the House is supposed to certify the results of the Electoral College. But if any member of the House objects, and there are multiple members who've already said they will, Matt Gaetz of Florida, Mo Brooks of Missouri, and others, then it requires the second of a U.S. senator. No senator has yet said they will provide a second, but several are expected to do so. Then that would open the door for debate. In that debate, you would have an opportunity to represent a lot of the evidence of voter fraud and cyber manipulation of the vote. Does that persuade the House to change its mind? Well, first of all, I fear that the presentation of the overwhelming and compelling case that this election was stolen will not be covered by the mainstream media. CNN will cut away to the Westminster Dog Show or something else. And therefore, I wonder whether the people will understand yet another attempt to educate them. I'm not really clear about this lawsuit involving the vice president. I need to study that and understand it a bit more before I'm able to comment on it. But here's what I would say. It's not over till it's over. It's not over till we say it's over. And those who are urging the president, and I saw several of them Saturday night when I saw the president in passing in West Palm Beach, who are telling him to concede, telling him to quit, telling him to pipe down. No, he shouldn't do any of those things. That would be dishonest. He should not go to the inauguration because that would be connoting a legitimacy on Joe Biden that he does not deserve and which he did not honestly win. So I think we have to continue this fight for the future of the country, and we have to continue the fight because this system needs to be reformed. If it is not reformed, then it's over for this country. We will no longer be the last beacon of freedom, in the world.
Jordan, I want to allow you an opportunity to ask a question here, and then we also have the attorney James, our final two questions here. So, Jordan, what question would you have for Roger Stone about the future of America?
Okay.
Maybe about the January 6th event? Anything you want to ask them?
Okay. Hey, Roger, when we met in Nashville, you said some things to us that kind of messed me up. I haven't been the same since, and you were talking about some of the deep state issues, all of the corruption in D.C., there has been a lot of talk, and you just kind of answered part of it. You said that it's not over till the fat lady sings. Does Donald Trump still have some moves to play, and what are the odds that he exposes a bunch of that deep state?
Well, hope springs eternal. I mean, I don't know what the president has up his sleeve, although knowing him, I would guess the answer is something. Yeah, I think he should do three things. He should pardon Julian Assange. He should pardon Edward Snowden, and he should release all of the classified documents pertaining to the JFK assassination. That would be a kick in the groin to the deep state. Julian Assange is not a Russian asset. He is not a criminal. John Brennan, who made that story up, he is a criminal. Edward Snowden merely showed the American people that when General James Clapper testified to the Congress and said, oh no, there's no metadata collection program on American citizens, and that was a lie he should be in prison for. Remember, they charged me with lying to Congress, even though the things I made misstatements about were immaterial. They were innocuous. They certainly didn't hide any underlying crime, unlike the significant lies of General Clapper. Where is Clapper today, you might wonder? Well, he's teaching ethics at Vermont College, and he's a commentator for CNN. How appropriate.
Okay, James, you're an attorney. You're from Manhattan. You've seen the destructions that the lockdowns have caused. You've done your research. You're clearly on the side of President Donald J. Trump. You also are a big fan of Roger Stone. What question would you have for Roger Stone?
Hi, Roger. Nice to talk to you again. My congratulations on your pardon. Yes, that's quite an event. I'm sure you must be ecstatic, and I look forward to seeing you in D.C. next week. Well, so my question to you is, now when Trump wins, when he's in office again, what sort of a position in his cabinet or in his administration would you look forward to having, or being proposed to have, or look forward to accept? And by the way,
well, first of all, I'm convinced that I'm completely unconfirmable by the United States Senate. For somebody who's been in politics for 40 years, I get in a lot of trouble because I tell you exactly what I really think. And I worked for Ronald Reagan, one of the greatest presidents of my lifetime. But at the 1980 convention, when there was a major move to add George Bush to the ticket, I opposed that. I made no bones about it. When George Bush ran for president in 1988, I supported Congressman Jack Kemp from my home state of New York. I have probably not been a go along to get along guy. I have no interest in serving in government. I have no interest in a formal position in a future Trump campaign. But I am going to return to the ramparts. I am going to get back in the fight because the fight is too important. This rally in Washington, D.C., this peaceful protest on January 6th, is vitally important because it gives us a chance to fight against the fake news narrative that the president has no support or that his support is dwindling. But I also have a major concern. The last time we were in Washington, D.C., 4 supporters of the president got stabbed by leftists late in the day. You won't read that, of course. They just say 4 people were stabbed. They don't tell you that they were all Trump supporters and they were all assaulted by leftist thugs. But this is a grassroots movement. This is kind of a pop-up movement. So we don't have the kind of funds that George Soros pours into Black Lives Matter and Antifa. We desperately need money for professional security to ensure the safety of our supporters. And therefore, you can help by going to stopthesteal.org now. We are raising money specifically for security. Everything is outlined there. There's no overhead in this operation. There are no well-paid consultants. There's no overhead. There's no office. There's no staff. We're all volunteers. What we've needed for a public address system, for logistics, for permitting, and so on, has pretty much been donated by the activists themselves, including me. But now we're at a point where we're going to have 1 million people in Washington. We need to hire professional security to ensure that those people are safe. And therefore, you can help us by going to stopthesteal.org right now and sending a contribution. I guarantee you that the funds will be spent for the exact purposes outlined when you go to the website. Nobody's getting rich on this movement, but we do need to make sure that our people are protected.
Brother, I appreciate you so much for being here on the show, and I want to give you the final word, as so few media outlets do. What is the main message that you want to communicate to our 500,000 listeners from coast to coast, our growing audience? What is it that you would like to share with the freedom-loving Americans out there?
Well, first of all, I'm glad to hear this is the last question because I hear a martini calling me right now. It's been a long, hard day.
Got it.
I guess it is this, that as you know, my first job in politics was working for President Richard Nixon. And I am an acolyte of Nixon because he was a truly great president. He brought us peace and prosperity. And unfortunately, his great accomplishments are buried in the ashes of Watergate. But whether it is saving Israel from total annihilation in the 1973 Yom Kippur War, whether it is the reaching the strategic arms limitation with the Soviets, or whether it's desegregating the public schools, he had an extraordinary record of achievement. But he is a man who said, never quit, never surrender, never give up, never stop fighting for America. He's the man who said, a man is not finished when he's defeated. He is only finished when he quits. Until one has been in the deepest valley, one cannot appreciate the majesty of the highest mountaintop. I subscribe to that. Never give up, never stop fighting, never give up on the United States of America. I'll be in Washington. I'd like to see all you folks in Washington. If you can't make it because of work or other limitations, then go to stopthesteal.org to help us protect the safety of those who will be there. This is an important endeavor because I knew one of the guys that got stabbed, and I'm very unhappy about it. And he's still in intensive care. We can't have this happen again. So I hope folks will help us out.
Roger Stone, thank you so much. Congratulations on your pardon, my friend. Your pardon couldn't have happened to a better person, and I'm sorry that you had to go through that. But I know that through the struggle, you've gained more strength. You're already a strong person, but that struggle has given you additional strength, and you've been a great example for everybody out there who's wanting to fight for our country. So again, thank you, sir, and I hope you have a great rest of your night.
Well, Clay, I appreciate that. There's two great things that came out of this ordeal. One, when you are faced with something like this, you find out who your real friends are and who your real friends are not.
Yeah.
In Washington, it's very phony. People pretend to be your friends because they want something from you or there's something you can do for them. But I found out in this struggle who my real friends are. And Clay, you've been a real friend. We haven't known each other that long. You've been extraordinarily effective on my behalf in the brief time that we have known each other. So for that, I'm grateful. The other thing here is this entire ordeal has brought me closer to Jesus Christ. I reaffirmed my Catholic faith. I got right with Jesus. I confessed my sins. And I became convinced that the Lord would not abandon me. The Lord would not desert me, that the Lord would deliver me from my persecutors. And so it has been. God bless America, and God bless our president, Donald Trump. I'm so glad to be with you, and I will see you all in Washington.
Take care. And now, without any further ado, 3, 2, 1, boom!